Hey everybody, just giving you a heads up. I got a couple of websites I'm actually going to endorse the Corridor crew. I at first kind of made a bad judgment call on them. I made a video and just took it down because a lot of you guys are like, "Hey, reconsider these guys. They're straight up. They're a benefit to the VFX community." My original beef was the first glance at who these people were, and I'm surprised I didn't hear about them earlier. Is the fact that they were like, "Hey, check out the VFX lifestyle. It's rock and roll, baby. We got skateboards. We're having fun." And they weren't selling the whole idea of just kind of being honest with the reality of the VFX industry being very hard. And they don't owe it to us to do that. I get it. But I found that doing a little bit more research and getting more into their Corridor Crew website, they have a lot to offer and for you guys to benefit from. As long as you're aware of one single fact, that the majority of compositors in the industry, I'm not talking about 3D artists because these guys are generalists, 3D compositing and so forth. Majority of the 3D art, that's done, both there's compositing and the animation and modeling is unfortunately done mostly in Maya, and compositing is done inside of Nuke. And I'm not saying it's any worse, but I can't imagine doing some roto work with After Effects and dealing with comps and After Effects. But for some people, that's the way it is. So you'll see them. There's a general endorsement for After Effects slash Cinema 4D, which as long as you guys are aware, and I'm sure they probably mentioned somewhere in here that Nuke is the standard. So if you really want to be a VFX artist, and let's face it, what was it, 10, 12 years ago, a lot of us compositors, we started out in After Effects. I interviewed a lot of people on my show. They're very thankful for people, such as Andrew Kramer for introducing them into that 2D reality of compositing for live action and CG, and a lot of it through Video Copilot. But I mean, the reality is that we still work in this sort of like Maya, Houdini, and then of course Moto's in there as well. And then we're kind of, compositing inside of Nuke. So as long as you're aware of that, which I think most of you are probably aware of it, there's no harm done by the Corridor. They've actually got some amazing tutorials. They just did a really cool video on deepfakes of how they digitally analyzed Tom Cruise's face and put it on there. They also have a good background on how they did their Boston Dynamics setup. And I do like the VFX artists' reaction, where they kind of go over before and after. You don't see a lot of that where they're kind of saying, look at these fine little details. So again, I take back what I say about the Corridor. I really hope that they're not being endorsed by After Effects and Cinema 4D behind the scenes, and kind of staying away from mentioning Nuke. But I am finding that my students, when I ask them, I go, and I was shocked to ask the students this last semester as it ended, I said, hey, have you guys ever heard of Corridor? And they're all raising their hands up going, oh yeah, that's the reason why I came to this school. So I was kind of shocked. I was like, wow. So these guys are being an influencer and mainstreaming VFX in the same way, sort of like certain websites are mainstreaming film, So you got like, what is it, like Film Riot and all those websites that kind of push film. So these guys, I would have to say, are the ones that are sort of mainstreaming VFX. And my only concern, of course, before was just to make sure that people are aware of the reality of how hard VFX stuff is. And I press that on my students as I kind of go through that. Now, the other website I want to plug here is this guy. And I contacted him and said, hey, dude, can I mention your website or your YouTube channel? And Paul Denigris, I hope I didn't tear that apart. He has some really cool tutorials on here that you should check out for Nuke specific. So he has a really good one on Reconcile 3D. He just did one, I'm trying to see where it's at. He just did one about motion blur, this one right here. Fixing edge contamination with the color smear. This is really awesome. And again, I didn't look too much into his videos. I just kind of glanced over some of them, but it is a resource. And I believe, from what I can tell, it's legit. You guys can write comments on the bottom, and you can always, tell me, hey, this guy's tutorials, or I question this one, I question that one. We want to make sure as we kind of go through this process that as I kind of say, hey, check out this website, that you guys are not led to websites that actually show bad information, that actually show tutorials that are giving you the wrong way of doing things. So just be aware of that. And again, just check out his YouTube channel. Again, another resource. We're starting to see a huge emergence of Nuke tutorials and so forth. Also, I want to give a thanks to my Patreons for their support, and if you can, support the site. We got 2 great interviews coming up with Ernesto Diaz and Adrian Pio. These are senior compositors at Trickster with Tony Lyons. Thanks to Tony for setting up the interviews. And they're going to give us more of a sort of a South American, European perspective, sort of a Spanish perspective of the VFX industry in those areas and so forth. So we've gone full circle. We've hit China, Germany. I'm trying to hit up Russia. So if anybody out there knows anybody that works at a major VFX house in Russia, I would love to kind of get a perspective from the maybe Moscow or something, somebody that works up there. They do some really amazing work in Russia. So again, getting a full world's perspective on things throughout the show. And again, thanks again for your support, and please stay tuned.